Good morning, Trucker Todd here, about to start driving, but before I do, time for a quick video. There's some things we need to talk about in this video. I'm going to answer some viewer questions, things that's been commented to me, messaged to me, emailed to me, even phone calls. I told a guy the other day, a real smart guy, been driving a lot of years, had a good question, and I briefly answered him, and I told him I'd do a video to go more in depth, and that's what this is. We're going to talk about lease purchase, and whether you've been driving a long time or whether you're new to trucking or considering trucking, we're going to talk about the pros and cons of it, and I'm going to answer some questions about my truck that's in the shop. And towards the end of this video, I'm going to tell you the most important thing you should look at when you consider doing a lease purchase. Now, let's start with talking about what a lease purchase is, and then we'll talk about my situation. If you're familiar with the rent-to-own industry, talking about where you go, you rent a couch, you rent a TV, you pay so much a week for a certain length of time, and then you own it at the end of that time. If you stop making payments, they come pick up your merchandise and they sell it to somebody else. That's basically what lease purchase is. You're buying a truck, but you have no ownership in the truck until you pay it off. Now, each company's program varies a little bit. I'd say 75 or 80% of them are rip-off, horrible programs that you should never do. And I actually did a video about lease purchases, and I said for most people, I do not recommend doing it. There's a very large reefer company in Springfield, Missouri, that will send people through their truck driving school, get them a CDL, and on day one, rent them a truck. Now, what's the problem with that? Well, the big problem, I know everybody that's not in trucking, and I was this way before I got in, thinks all you're doing is driving. What's there to it? But you don't know what you don't know. And I would say, I know guys say, oh, after a year you could do it. I really think you need 5 years experience before you lease a truck to kind of learn. And obviously some of it depends what you're doing and the type of experience you're getting, but you really need to have a good grasp of trucking before you jump into something like this. Now, what are the pros and cons of lease purchase? Again, it varies a little bit from company to company, but the main thing is if you quit, for example, the lease I'm in, it's 3 years. If I quit during that 3 years, more than likely I lose the truck and the vast majority of the money I invested in it. What's the benefits? Basically the same thing. Most of the leases are no money down. They're a walk-away lease. They don't look at your credit. So lease purchase is a good option maybe for somebody that's got some bumps in their credit. Maybe they don't have a large down payment. I do recommend having some money saved before you get started in case something happens in the early stages. You need a hotel for a week while your truck's in the shop or something like that. But the great thing about it is, say something happens and you need to come off the road for whatever reason. You can get out of your lease purchase in most cases. A lot of them are a walk-away lease, which means you just take the truck back to the terminal, usually sign a few papers, and you're out. Whereas if you went out and got a bank loan, you'd have to find a way to sell that truck, you'd probably, or let it repo, and you're looking at credit issues. Another reason we're going to talk about here, right after I explain what happened with my truck. And if you have more questions after this video, feel free to leave one down in the comments. Feel free to email me, and I'll try to answer you just as quick as I can. I'm on my way to Chicago right now, and I am running like crazy. But so here's what happened with my truck. I got the truck about 4.5 months into it. It got what is called dusting. Somehow dirt got into the cylinders. They're not sure exactly how, and it deteriorates the rings, and basically the engine needs to be rebuilt. Now, let's look at the two scenarios. It's been in there a couple of weeks now. I have heard back from the shop, and I've got the framework of what's going to happen in my mind, and by the mid part or end of next week, I'll know, and I'll share that information with you. I don't want to speculate or jump the gun until I have all the facts before me. So, let's say that I had done this through a bank loan. The last estimate I received from that shop is $40,000. Had I done a bank loan, I would have to go back to the bank and say, hey, this truck I just bought 4.5 months ago is gone kaput. I need $40,000 more dollars to get it fixed. Now, more than likely, a $40,000 loan would, along with the original loan, would be way more than the truck's worth. Even if I had a W900 or a KW, something like that, it would still be way more than the value of the truck, more than likely, after just buying it from a dealership that soon. The term in the car industry, I'm assuming it's in the truck industry too. For those that don't know, I sold cars for several years before driving a truck, and even managed a car lot for a little bit. And then when I've been burnt out on trucking, I've gone back to it in the past. The term in the car industry is called upside down. It's when you owe more on something than what it's worth. And typically, anytime you buy something from a dealership, there's a period of time where you owe more on it than what it's worth. Okay, so more than likely the bank, unless I had stellar credit, and even then they'd be reluctant, would probably deny the loan application for getting the truck repaired. Then I would have to look at a house mortgage, friends and family, things like that. And I don't have any friends and family with that kind of money laying around. I'm renting, so I don't have a mortgage I could draw from. And my credit's not great. So those aren't options, but we're doing hypotheticals here. The advantage to a lease purchase, and again, it does depend on the company, is like, for example, with Roadrunner, they were contacting the shop. They were advocating on my behalf. They have an ability to help you that if you went to a bank and got a loan, they probably wouldn't be as involved in. I don't mean they as Roadrunner. I mean trucking companies in general. So there are some disadvantages to doing a lease purchase, but there's also some advantages. And now let's talk about what you should look at when so you've made up your mind, I'm going to do a lease purchase. I don't care what anybody says. What should you look for? I'm going to tell you the immediate things you'll look for, and this is where I'm going to answer that other guy's question. So, and I'm also going to have to draw from my car sales experience too. The guy basically wanted to know, and these are fair questions. He wasn't being a troll or nothing like that. Why didn't you have the truck dynoed? Why didn't you take it to an independent shop and have it inspected? Why didn't you do an oil sample test before you bought the truck? Things like that. Well, let's take them one at a time. In the car lot industry, they called it the blue plate special. And that's where you pick up a car, you take it to your mechanic, he looks it over. It usually costs about $100. And he says, yes, this is a good car. No, this is not a good car. During my car sales time, I sold almost 1,000 cars. Less than a dozen were ever taken to a mechanic. Less than a dozen ever brought a mechanic with them, or, a lot of times they'd bring a brother-in-law, a father, something like that. He'd look over, kick the tires, things like that. But for the most part, that was rarely done. In this day and age, a lot of car lots, and I assume it's the same at truck lots, they aren't interested in doing that because it takes inventory from the lot. Hey, I've heard stories about people picking up cars taking them to their shop, the mechanic loosening some oil pan bolts for them, saying, hey, this car's got an oil leak. Them going back to the dealer and saying, hey, let's negotiate the price. This car has an oil leak. Well, it didn't have it before, but they found a mechanic that's a brother-in-law or something that is helping them negotiate the price. Or they'll loosen an oil filter and say, hey, it's got a leak right here. And so it's a shame, but a few bad apples ruin it for everybody. And I don't know, your dealership might let you do that, but the problem you're going to run into with lease purchase, and here's how the companies look at it. They're taking you with no money down. They're taking a big risk on you. You may run the truck out of oil and say, I'm going to walk away. Sure, they can put it on your credit, but if you're doing a lease purchase, you probably had bad credit when you got there. So they check the trucks out because they don't want to sell you a lemon they're going to get stuck with. But, for example, the first truck I selected, now, this wasn't Roadrunner, I selected this truck, got out, I was putting the license plates on it, I had already signed the contracts, and I noticed a leak underneath the truck. I mentioned it to them, they looked at it, the front cover of the engine was cracked, and it was leaking. It was going to be several days to order the parts and fix it. So they ended up moving me to the second truck, which is the one I have now that lasted 4.5 months that's in the shop. Let's say that on that first truck, I would have done like the guy suggested. If I'd have said, you know what, we're at an international dealer, I want a dyno. Let's say they agreed to it, said, sure, Todd, we'll do a dyno. It costs this amount of money. All right, let's say the same truck. I said, you know what, I want to do an oil sample test. Sure, Todd, go right ahead. Now, first of all, an oil sample test, I've been doing a lot of reading about this. They say do it mid-cycle in the oil change. So 25,000, somewhere around 12 or 13,000 is when you are to do the oil sample. Okay, and so the oil's just been changed. This truck's been inspected, gone through by the shop. The oil sample is probably going to tell me little to nothing. The dyno, several $100. If it comes back bad, then I've wasted that plus the oil sample test. Now I have to inspect another truck. Meanwhile, the company's saying, hey, we're doing you a favor here. We've took you with no money down. We've accepted your bad credit. We don't even know if you're a good driver. We've looked at your DAC, but you've never worked for us. You know, some companies require you to work there 6 months or a year before you do a lease purchase so they can see what kind of driver you are. And so the short answer to that guy's question is I've never heard of a lease purchase company letting you do that, but even if they did, it could become very cost prohibitive very quickly. You could spend $1,000, $2,000 without blinking your eyes and still not be any further ahead than what you would have been the other way. Now, what should you check? Should you consider doing a lease purchase? And when should you walk away? Well, obviously you want to check the DOT things. You want to check the tires, the brakes, make sure the heating and air work, make sure all the lights work. You still want to check the oil, the antifreeze, look for things like that, the wiring, the suspension, all of the things that a DOT officer would check if they were doing a full inspection. And but really when it comes down to it, you know, and I've got another friend that he's all about the truck. He could care less about money, anything else. He wants to know what kind of truck he can get. I specifically asked for an international. I had an international LT with another company previously, and I really liked that truck. And these had a Cummins. I think a lot of the Cummins engine and company. I've got some family members on my wife's side of the family that have worked for Cummins. And so I've got a positive opinion about Cummins. And so I got basically the truck I wanted from Roadrunner. Now, do I ever get new truck fever and think, man, I'd like to have a W900? or man, I'd like to have a T680, or man, I'd like to have a Volvo. Sure, I would love to have any of those trucks. But is that really the most important thing in a lease purchase? Are you out here to provide for your family, or are you out here to look cool going down the road? That same reefer company that I talked about in Springfield, Missouri, that will put students in a lease purchase, that was their deal for many, many years. Drivers would line up to go there, not because the money was good, the pay was good, none of that, but because they'd get to drive a fancy truck. And a lot of them lost their houses, their cars, what credit they had. I was even dumb enough to go there twice. And so don't get so focused on the truck. That's not where it's at. Also, I've got a neighbor y'all have heard me talk about in a few videos. He changes companies every 6 or 8 weeks trying to get sign-on bonuses, or because a company will offer him 2 or 3 cents a mile more. I've said in previous videos, I think Roadrunner underpays us by about 17%. It's well known, it's in my videos. So why do I stay here? Well, because it's a great company, and they've been really good to me, and I still make a decent living. So, am I driving my dream truck? No. Am I making the exact amount of money I think I should be making for the work I do? No. But do I run where I want? Yes. Do I go home when I want? Yes. Am I treated with respect and dignity? And are they really good to me? Absolutely. So that's why I do this, and that's why that's going to be my number one thing you should look for in a lease purchase. Find a good company. Do your research. Check reviews online. Talk to drivers out on the road. Look, it's no secret. I would love it if you guys came to work at Roadrunner. I'd love it if you guys put me as a reference so that I could get the referral bonus. But even if you don't put me as a referral, this is the place to work for most people. Now, you know, companies are different. I'm sure this isn't for everybody, but it is a really, really good company. I've said in previous videos, it's the best place I've ever driven a truck for. Now, everybody needs to make sure that they're liked and subscribed. Coming up, I'm still going to do that Penske rental video where I rented this Penske truck and tell you about it. I'm still going to tell you what I like about this Freightliner and what I prefer on the International ProStar better. And I'm still going to update you on what's going on with my truck as soon as I get the final details. So make sure that you're liked and subscribed. Share this video. And click that bell notification so when I put these videos out, you'll see them. I'm going to hop off of here and scoot on down the road, and we'll catch you on the next one. Thanks for watching.